Hi there, chapter 1 of The Mind and Heart of the Negotiator. This one is just the overview chapter of the book. So, negotiation essentials. We're going to learn how to be better, more effective, more successful negotiators. Because everything we do, if you think about it, is really negotiations. Negotiation is one way to communicate with other people. And this is the way we're actually achieving our goals that we have. So your first bullet point here is going to give you that definition of what a negotiation is. It's an interpersonal, right, meaning between two or more people, decision-making process. So we are making decisions, many decisions, which indicate it's a process, not just a one-time event. So multiple points in time, making multiple decisions with yourself in a relationship or in relation with another person or more people. And this we're doing to achieve a goal. And we are always negotiating because we come together in organizations to achieve goals. We cannot achieve these goals on our own. They're too large for us. And so that's why we organize and come together with other people. So negotiation is an interpersonal decision-making process necessary whenever we cannot achieve our objectives by ourselves. And so we use negotiation as a tool to communicate and to influence, positively influence. We don't manipulate, we're not mean to people. We are influencing them to reach positive goals in organizations. And it's not just about resources and getting stuff, it's about maintaining your relationships, keeping that trust. And so those are concepts we keep coming back to in this book. However, as I already said, most of us are not great negotiators. So we're here to learn the skills and to acquire knowledge to become better. So 4 big themes. The first one is relationships versus economics, which I already alluded to on the prior slide. And that is really in the title of the book, The Mind and the Heart of the Negotiator. So using our mind, our cognitive abilities, we are making sure that we are focusing on strategies, tactics really, to be deliberate and rational and acquire a good outcome out of the negotiation. But the heart piece is equally as important. Sometimes it messes up for us. We become anxious or jealous or angry, right? So that's the emotion side of negotiation. But we want to make sure we keep those relationships, we keep the trust, and we have positive experiences and positive emotions. So both the relationship and the outcomes of the negotiations are important. And so we're going to draw on both economics literature as well as psychology in this textbook to make sure that we become comprehensive, good negotiator. 2 terms that come out of behavioral economics are satisficing and optimizing. And as humans, we tend to satisfice quite often, which means we regress back to the average. We only look at minimum goals or minimum outcomes, and we don't think about it as such. Obviously, if we did, we wouldn't do it probably. But we satisfy, meaning we are satisfactory in the outcomes we are looking to get. They suffice for us, as opposed to optimize, meaning we're trying to capture all the gains possible in a situation. And so most of the time, as humans, we satisfy, and we are going to learn to optimize. Short-term versus long-term relationships. We might act a lot of the time as this is a one-time thing. I might become assertive and aggressive, I might yell, but that actually hurts the relationship in the longer term. So we want to make sure that we act and communicate as if every situation you're in is a long-term relationship. Even if it's just with the Uber rider, because he or she might be recording you. As we know from the ex-CEO of Uber, who let one of the Uber drivers have it in that interaction in the car. And that was ended up being recorded and posted all over the internet, right? With technology, with video and audio right now, we can just assume that everything we say and do will be visible, and can be heard by anybody, right? So we treat every situation we are in as a long-term negotiation or relationship. Inter-organization means within your organization. We might think that that is an easier way or easier situation for negotiations versus inter-organizational, which means between organizations, right? But that is not true. Even within organizations, people carry those emotions. There might be jealousy and envy and other things. And so just know that even with your colleagues, with your manager, with your peers, with your subordinate, we still have to apply those effective negotiation skills and communication skills to make sure that our goals are met, as well as their goals, right? And that's the win-win. So when I talk about your goals and your success and your effectiveness and your winning and your outcomes, I am not saying that the other people are losing. That is why we want to make sure the relationship stays intact. So we want to make sure we focus up here in the win-win situation. So we are not just in a fixed pie situation. We want to expand the pie. We call this integrative negotiations, integrative agreements, where everybody walks away feeling they get something. However, most of the time we talk about this as win-lose, right? We compromise. Sometimes we give something up. And in worse situations, it's even a lose-lose where both parties walk away not feeling that they get what they wanted. So we want to stay up there at the top in the win-win. So why do we need to be good negotiators? And I don't even think I have to talk about this at this point, because we all realize that everything is a negotiation and that we need to be good at it. And so it is a core competency for us. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and hide this. There we go. So we can read the titles a little bit better, right? So in the knowledge economy, right, most of what the work that we do is based on somebody's brain, their intellect, their knowledge, their expertise. And millennials, right, they job hop a lot. So between these two things, we know that negotiations occur all the time. Whenever you go into a new career, there's definitely negotiations occurring there. Whenever you interact with somebody in this knowledge economy, there is definitely negotiations occurring, because people are not just producing things in a factory here in the United States, right? We have specialized expertise. I have some, you have some, which means I need to access what's in your head, which makes me interdependent on you. So whenever I need other people, we need to be able to communicate effectively. We need to be able to negotiate. And then between IT and globalization, the world is flat. Everybody has access to everything all the time. We have access to information. We really need to apply more critical thinking, because not information is good. But somebody in China, somebody in Singapore, somebody in Sweden, somebody in South America and Chile, right, have things that we need, and we communicate with them. And that requires us to have skills beyond just our local knowledge. Many negotiation traps, we're going to talk about them coming up in this course and in the textbook, but essentially, right, the first one is just a lose-lose negotiation where we leave things on the table, right? We're not expanding the pie, we're walking away too soon. We might, and that's true for both parties, right? The lose-lose negotiation. Or you might be settling for too little, which causes winner's curse. So somebody else is getting what they want, but you are not. And then in number 3, you might just be completely walking away from the table, leaving everything there, not even reaching an agreement, which is a huge failure in negotiations. And so one example was in 2008 with then CEO of Yahoo, Jerry Yang, was ousted by the board because he failed to reach merger agreements with Microsoft and with Microsoft and Google because of his behaviors. It wasn't even economics. It was his behavior, where he wanted to grab more from the negotiations than his position would allow him to. He kept asking anecdotally, right, for more and more and more. We need to get more out of these agreements. And when that didn't happen, ended up walking away from the table, leaving Yahoo at a much more precarious situation today, probably, than they would have been had they had an agreement with Microsoft or Google. We do not think of Yahoo as big players in the tech space anymore. And then agreement bias is the last one, where we are not seeing all the agreements that are available to us, so we're ended up settling. A lot of negotiation traps for sure existing. And so how do we become better? It's all about what happens before the negotiation, during the negotiation, as well as after the negotiation. And so the next slide, Exhibit 1.1, will summarize a lot of these things that we are covering throughout this chapter. But essentially what we are looking at is, can we actually reach that agreement? Something in 2008 that Yahoo CEO did not, right? We want to make sure we have an opportunity to reach a good agreement. Does it meet our goal, right? So number 2 is, does the negotiation and its outcome meet the goals that we have as negotiators? Will it last? A lot of the time we negotiate, we come to an outcome, and for some reason, one or both or all of the negotiators are not willing to honor that agreement, and it's not lasting. And if we actually have a successful negotiation, it is sticking, that outcome is sticking, can we have subsequent negotiations that are equally successful? Can we have that long-term relationship? So big table here. We're not going to cover it all right now, obviously, but if you are just here for this one chapter, you might want to pause here and just pay attention to what's written on the slide. But we are essentially looking at the things that happen prior to negotiation, right? So do you initiate negotiation? What does that look like? How do you prepare for it, right? How do you prepare for your negotiation? What happens during the actual negotiation? What is your strategy? What kind of agreements are we looking at? And what relationship factors are being considered and maintained? And lastly, post-negotiation. Are we honoring the agreement? What's your reputation? Did you lose temper, right? Did you lose your cool? Did you cheat and manipulate, right? Those things will now live with us forever in our reputation. Did we lose that trust? Okay, so it is a process, right? So think back to how we just defined negotiation at the beginning, and I see my computer moving around here as I'm typing on it. Yeah, process. Lost my train of thought for a moment. So it really is a process where we have to be both rational, economic, and use our heart during the entire process. So a lot of skills and knowledge to acquire for sure. And so how do we do it? How do we acquire all the skills, knowledge, and maintain our cool and our heart in the process? Well, this book really focuses on 3 big things. Is how do we create value? How do we end up in a win-win negotiation? How do you claim value? Meaning avoiding those traps we talked about. And how do you maintain the relationships for that longer term, for your reputation, and for fairness and trust with the other party? Ways we can do this is by getting feedback. And feedback is needed not just for negotiations, but in your life. If somebody gives you feedback, that is a gift. Treasure it and say thank you, even though you don't want to hear it, right? We have these egos. Feedback is difficult, but it's important. Without feedback, we're not going to get any better. Just experiences without feedback is not going to help us. Get feedback. Think about the strategies. Analyze what went well, what went wrong. You can do a post-mortem. You can do a pre-mortem if you have something coming up. Think about the possibilities in terms of what is working and not working. Practice, 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 practice. We never get any better without practicing it. You're not going to get or be awesome in your first negotiation. And we all know we've been doing negotiations up to this point in our lives. And so how do we get better at knowing what we know about that? So at the end of the day, we're going to have some mental models, some concepts, structures in our heads, tools that are going to help us be better negotiators. And that's going to be it, right, for what we're doing with this course. We're going to have those mental models. A few negotiation myths that we might want to think about, right? Essentially summarizing what we've talked about up to this point. Myth number one, negotiations are fixed sum. We know that they're not. We try to reach integrative agreements, which we know can be done, especially in mixed motives situations. You know what a mixed motive situation is. Your goal is different from the goal of the other negotiator, which means that all these goals can be met because we're not fighting for the same thing most of the time. Myth number two, you need to be tough or soft. Neither, right? It's kind of rude, or, you know, act like a doormat. Neither of those are amazing. Be principled, stick with the principles, cooperate with the other party. If they get what they want, most likely you will get what you want. Act and communicate in appropriate, professional, kind manners, and they will reciprocate most of the time, right? Be a good role model in that negotiation. Myth 3 and 4, right? Are you born like this? Can you trust your intuition? I was just teaching an executive MBA course on decision making. Students love to say, you know, we're great decision makers. We're born like this. I can trust my gut. And most of the time, this is not true. This is why we have courses like this one, is to acquire those skills, that knowledge, and those tools to make sure we get better. Can you trust your gut? That's a good question, and we're going to talk a lot more about that. If you're an expert in that specific field, if you have done this a million times, I would say absolutely trust your gut. If you're a novice, if this is new to you, if you've done it a handful of times, I would rely on a rational process as opposed to my intuition to make sure I get a better outcome. With that, we're going to close this one, and I'll see you back for the next one. Have a good one. Thanks.